Yeah.
I like the if they had a banana in it, cherry kind.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Jay, here to talk about this exciting wrestling related news that we just heard. This year, class of 2022, the greatest superstar, in my opinion, in the history of the WWE is going to go into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. The dead man, the American badass, the Grim Reaper, the boss of the yard, the big dog, the Undertaker. The Undertaker is the most loyal soldier, was the most loyal soldier of the WWE in WWE's whole history. During the time 1993 to 1996, 97, when Vince McMahon was going through his steroids issue, his problems with the federal government, his problems with WCW. A lot of guys were defecting to WCW. A lot of guys were leaving the company to go to WCW for those big guaranteed contracts. The Undertaker stood loyal, he stood faithful to the WWE, and he never left during those dark years. He was loyal to the WWE. Other guys, Diesel, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, um, a bunch all left the WWE during that time period, but not the Undertaker. He was he was there forever, and he's the only wrestler since I started watching that is still there to this day. You know, he started in 1990 at the Survivor Series as Ted DiBiase's mystery partner, and making the jump from WCW to the WWE. He was in the WCW in 1989. He was managed by Paul Heyman, managed by Teddy Long, and then he made that transition to the WWE, and he was Ted DiBiase's partner. And Ted DiBiase introduced him, and Roddy Piper was on commentary, and Roddy Piper said, and I'll never forget this quote: "Wow, look at the size of those ham hocks," because it was Thanksgiving. And Taker just amazed people because people had never seen up until that point a character like that. He was the dead man. He was walking around like he was a zombie, and then Paul Bearer would lift the urn, and then he would sit right up, and everything his opponent did against him, his opponent's offense was totally ineffective. Within a year of being with the company, he won the WWF Championship from the WWF's biggest star, Hulk Hogan, and he just seemed unbeatable. Because, like I said, he would get in there and he would, choke you. He would do the tombstone. You would try to beat him up, and he wasn't to be beat up. He was dead. You know what I mean? For all intents and purposes. And then he turns babyface because even though he's the Undertaker, even though he's a, a ghostly character like from a horror movie, he still has a conscience. His partner Jake the Snake Roberts wants to hit Miss Elizabeth with a steel chair. Jake Roberts is backstage. He has the steel chairs ready to hit Elizabeth with it as Elizabeth comes through the door. Undertaker grabs the chair and then he tells Taker, "You're supposed to be on my side. You know, who are you with?" And Undertaker says, "Not you." And then they have the match at WrestleMania 8 in 1992, in which Taker is a babyface. And from that point on, Undertaker was a babyface up until like 1999 when he formed the Ministry of Darkness. And he was one of the greatest babyfaces the WWE ever had. Who can forget his manager, Paul Bearer, who was an actual mortician before he became a wrestling manager. the late Percy Pringle, aka William Moody. And his signature phrases when he would introduce Taker, he would say, "Oh yes, my Undertaker is going to destroy you, Yokozuna." you know, those phrases. The match with Yokozuna at Survivor Series 1994 and 4 and Royal Rumble 1994. Royal Rumble 1994 when they go to the back and Taker is carving the casket double wide, double deep for Yoko. And then you look at Taker's eyes and he goes, "Yokozuna, rest in peace." And everybody loved it. But in 1997, I say Taker did his best work. In 1997, like I said, the company was on its ass, basically. It was everybody left, Diesel left, Razor Ramon left. Bret Hart was on hiatus after losing the WWF Championship to Shawn Michaels. And nobody was hardly there. And it was Undertaker who took the reins and at WrestleMania 13 defeated Psycho Sid to become the WWF champion for the second time. And having yet another babyface run. Matches with Mankind, matches with Stone Cold Steve Austin, matches with Farouk. But after he defeats Paul Bearer turns on him at SummerSlam 1996. They have the Boiler Room Brawl match because here's the thing with Taker. He was so powerful after he became a babyface that really throughout 1993 and 1994 and even 1995, it was hard to find somebody that could beat him. In order to make him beatable, even against Yokozuna at Royal Rumble 1994, you had to have all the heels come in and they all beat him up, and then they opened up the urn and his spirit in the form of a spirit went away, and that was the first time he died. And then he came back as he came back as Purple Undertaker. People thought he was a heel. People thought Ted DiBiase was his manager. Ted DiBiase had brought him back as his manager because they remember that Ted DiBiase was the one who brought him in originally. So they bring in Brian Lee as the Underfaker. Brian Lee and Undertaker have the Undertaker vs. Undertaker match at SummerSlam 1994. But even then, they didn't have anybody to really challenge him that would make the Undertaker look weak until Mankind debuts. Mankind debuts the night after WrestleMania 12. He beats up the Undertaker. Him and Undertaker have a feud. And Paul Bearer accidentally hits the Undertaker with an urn at King of the Ring 1996. Undertaker loses that match. They fight for the whole summer, and then finally at the Boiler Room Brawl, a Mankind specialty match. The object of the match is the first guy to go into the ring and get the urn from Paul Bearer wins the match. Well, Undertaker gets in, he kneels across Paul Bearer, and Paul Bearer hits him with the urn. People are shocked. People are like, "Oh God, Paul Bearer turning heel against the Undertaker," making the Undertaker lose the match. So Paul Bearer becomes the manager of Mankind. So we roll around to 1997. Taker gets the title match, defeats Sid at WrestleMania 13, and we roll back around to the Undertaker versus Mankind feud. Paul Bearer now managing Mankind. Undertaker defeats Mankind at In Your House, Revenge of the Taker, and burns Paul Bearer's face. Now Paul Bearer doesn't have the black and white look anymore. He has his regular look. He's just a heel. But he starts saying that he has a secret about the Undertaker. You know, oh, Undertaker, I have this secret, and if the Undertaker doesn't let him manage him, if the Undertaker doesn't let him, Paul Bearer, manage him, the Undertaker, as the WWF champion, Paul Bearer will reveal the secret, the Undertaker's secret. Well, that works for a while. Paul Bearer has Vader under his wing. Paul Bearer has Mankind under his wing. And Paul Bearer now has the Undertaker. Him and the Undertaker are reunited. A babyface wrestler with a heel manager, right? So, but after a while, Taker just gets fed up. And he's like, you know what? Fuck you, Paul Bearer. I don't care if you reveal my secret. So this has us all on the edge of our seat. What is the Undertaker's secret? What is this secret thing? Because the Undertaker, he was always a mystery. Like, it was always a mystery what was in the urn, what was giving him his special powers, to win these matches. So finally, he beats up Paul Bearer, and Paul Bearer just blurts it out. Paul Bearer's like, Kane is alive. Kane, your brother, is alive. The one you thought died in the funeral home that you and Kane were playing around with matches in your father's funeral home, and the funeral home burned down, and you thought Kane was dead, but Kane is still alive. Your brother Kane. And then Undertaker looks shocked, right? Because apparently he thought Kane was really dead, right? So people are like, okay, yeah, Paul Bearer's a heel, right? Of course he's gonna lie. He's gonna be like, Taker's brother's still alive. Like, yeah, right? We never even knew that Taker had a brother. But interesting fact, in real life, before even a little while after his debut at Survivor Series 1990, Undertaker himself was actually called Kane the Undertaker. You know what I mean? But they dropped the Kane part and they just started calling him the Undertaker. So throughout 1997, Paul Bearer is still saying this. Paul Bearer is still saying Kane is alive. Kane is alive. So SummerSlam 1997, Bret the Hitman Hart versus The Undertaker. If Bret Hart loses, he can no longer wrestle in the United States. But the trick is Shawn Michaels is the referee. So we know Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart have this heat together, not only from WrestleMania 12 on screen, kayfabe, but in real life. So we're like, okay, of course he's going to help Taker win. Bret Hart brings a chair into the ring. Shawn Michaels grabs the chair, and as he's winding it up, he hits The Undertaker. And Undertaker loses the WWF Championship for the second time. Now, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels begin their feud. Shawn Michaels is a heel, right? And he starts feuding with Undertaker. But a lot of interference happens. Interference with DX that was newly formed. DX actually formed on Raw after Undertaker and Mankind, they reconciled, and Mankind became a babyface, and they reconciled, and they had a tag team match against Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Shawn Michaels, and that was when Shawn Michaels hit Undertaker with a chair, bloodied him up, and that was when DX formed. So now they have this feud going. So it's decided that they will have, for the first time ever, a Hell in a Cell match. Now, what is a Hell in a Cell match? Traditionally, in the WWF/WWE/the New York territory, ever since the 1960s, since the days when Bruno Sammartino fought the original Sheik, they always used a bar cage, the big blue bars. WrestleMania 2, Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy, they used the big blue bars. That was just what Bruno was comfortable with, and the stipulation was also SummerSlam '94, Owen versus Brett, Blake blue bars. In the NWA slash WCW, they always used the gate cage, like the fence cage, and there would be a roof on it. That's what they would use for war games and even regular cage matches. So, being that Shawn Michaels and Triple H were involved heavily with booking, uh, they suggested that use the Hell in a Cell. Use the gate cage with the roof on top for this match coming up at Bad Blood '97, number one contenders match, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. So they do that, and it was a hell of a match. It was one of the most memorable matches in the history of the WWE, and it started a trend of Hell in a Cell, right? But towards the end, the lights go out, everything turns red, and boom, it's Kane. Kane. And you hear Vince McMahon on commentary, that's got to be Kane. That's got to be Kane. Right? And Kane comes out, he tombstone pile drives the Undertaker and costs the Undertaker the number one contendership. And him and Undertaker go on to have a tremendous, great, legendary match at WrestleMania 14. But now we're introduced to the Kane character. Eventually, him and Kane would team up, and they would become tag team champions throughout 1998. And eventually, he would turn heel again in 1999, kidnapping Stephanie McMahon and forming the Ministry of Darkness and crucifying Stone Cold Steve Austin like Jesus on his symbol. Then in 2000, he gets fired by Vince McMahon and Shane after they unite the corporate ministry, the corporation, Vince McMahon's group with the Ministry of Darkness, Undertaker's group, and he reemerges as a biker Undertaker, the American badass. And then when he turns heel again, after the invasion angle, he brings his wife Sarah as his new valet manager during the invasion angle, and Diamond Dallas Page is Sarah's stalker. And they had a crazy feud, and Taker kind of had DDP fired. And then in 2004, in another feud with Kane, he returns as the Dead Man character, Madison Square Garden, WrestleMania 20. And from there, he was on a roll, really. Like, he would have these great WrestleMania matches, and the streak became a thing, especially when he had the WrestleMania 23 match with Batista. It was like, okay, do you guys notice that The Undertaker never lost at WrestleMania? First WrestleMania match he ever had, he fought against Jimmy Snuka. Second WrestleMania match against Jake the Snake Roberts. Third WrestleMania match against the Giant Gonzalez. Fourth WrestleMania match against King Kong Bundy. Fifth WrestleMania match against Diesel. Sixth WrestleMania match against Sid. Seventh WrestleMania match against Kane. All these WrestleMania matches that he's ever had, and he's never lost. And suddenly that starts to become a thing. Like superstars wanting to step up and beat him for his streak. It was around WrestleMania 23 that really became a thing. It was a little bit WrestleMania 22 when he fought against Mark Henry in the Hell in a Cell match. But around WrestleMania 23 was when they really started to make the streak a thing. And he would have these incredible opponents. Shawn Michaels twice, one of the greatest wrestling matches ever at WrestleMania 25. And then again at 26, where he retires Shawn Michaels. WrestleMania 27 against Triple H. WrestleMania 28, Hell in a Cell against Triple H. Hell in a Cell kind of became Undertaker's second signature match because, again, King of the Ring 1998, he has the match with Mankind. And he actually was the one that threw Mankind off of the cell. And people were like, good God Almighty, he is broken in half. Yeah, I almost forgot it, big dog. You know what I mean? Thank you for hopping on, man. I always appreciate you. You know, you jogged my memory. I've been I've been watching, like I said, wrestling forever, and the one constant since 1990, and the one constant, I've been a fan as long as Taker has been in the WWE. So the one constant in my wrestling fandom was the Undertaker, and he's no longer there. But anyway, during the streak era, it was like who was gonna every year was like who was gonna beat Taker, who was gonna beat him, right? Who was gonna be that person that was finally gonna beat the Undertaker? We thought he would retire. A lot of us fans thought, okay, he's gonna retire with nobody having beaten his streak, right? So no, WrestleMania 30, 2014, the first WrestleMania on the network. And Brock Lesnar becomes the one behind 21-1. He defeats The Undertaker with Paul Heyman in Taker's corner, in Brock's corner. Paul Heyman now, the manager of The Undertaker back in his WCW days, Big Mark Callis days. And everyone is shocked. The famous image of that kid, you know, like this, everyone is shocked when the referee's hand actually went down and Taker lost the match. So people think he's gonna go away. He wrestles a couple more WrestleMania matches. Bray Wyatt, he wrestles 1 year. Shane McMahon, when Shane comes back at WrestleMania 32 again, Hell in a Cell. Like I said, Hell in a Cell kind of became signature for Taker. He's had so many Hell in a Cell matches, even one that fans don't want to remember when he actually hung the Big Boss Man in 1999 at WrestleMania 15. You know, he's had so many Hell in a Cell matches. Hell in a Cell kind of became his signature, one of his signature besides the casket match. So, but then he wrestles Roman Reigns. No, I didn't, big dog. I never liked it. I mean, I understand it's true to the Undertaker who he really is as a person, but who really wants to see Batman and yeah, I know. Who wants to really see Batman and Superman as normal people, right? We don't want to see them as Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent. We want to see them, the mystique of The Undertaker, why I fell in love with The Undertaker character when I was a kid was because he was so mysterious. He seemed unbeatable. Like I said, if you watched him during those days, guys would hit him with everything. Guys would hit him with chairs. He would no sell it. Either he would no sell it or he would pop right up like Michael Myers on some Michael Myers type shit. You know, just sit right up. And when he became American Badass, he became, vulnerable, became human like. They tried to humanize The Undertaker, but that takes The Undertaker out of being The Undertaker. He had a cool theme song, he used Limp Bizkit's Rolling, and he used American American Badass by Kid Rock. It was cool to hear, it's his real personality, the music he really listens to. He loves bikes, but it wasn't for me. I was there that night when the Dead Man came back in the rematch with Kane, WrestleMania 20, and I enjoyed the Dead Man character. That was to me the real one. WrestleMania 33, the match against Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns defeats him, and then Taker lays his garments all on the ring, and it's like, okay, this is Undertaker's last ride. The Undertaker versus Undertaker match. Yeah, I did too. At that time, Big Dog, I was like, um, I was like 10, 11. And my stepdad, who introduced me to professional wrestling, he and I were watching it, and I believed, that was really the Undertaker. I'm like, oh no, man, the Undertaker sold out. He joined the $1 million corporation. You know, and then I remembered, continuity. That's what WWE had back in those days. Continuity. It made sense. He was Ted DiBiase's mystery partner at Survivor Series. So of course, and Ted DiBiase was the one to introduce him. So of course he's gonna be um uh he's gonna come back and Ted DiBiase gonna be able to bring him back. Undertaker, and then when Paul Bearer reveals he's the perp one, yeah. Yeah, Leslie Nielsen, Undertaker sightings. Like they would just see the Undertaker here at a pizza shop. They would see the Undertaker there in a kindergarten school shop. And then they hired Leslie Nielsen from the Naked Gun series to, to be the investigator, to try to spot where the Undertaker is at. It was just some funny stuff, and Taker giving his friend Brian Lee a job. Later, Brian Lee would go on to be changed from DOA. But it was really sad that only Taker only came back as the Great Undertaker when he won the WWE Championship for the second time against Sid. Other than that, he retired the gray gloves and the gray, um, you know, the gray boot coverings. That to me that's class. I hope he shows up with that look, um, at the Hall of Fame. I did like the all black one. I was there for that too. Survivor Series '96 when he had the blow off with the first blow off with him and Mankind. He came back in the all black after being buried alive. Yeah, it was. I wish it would have went on longer. There was this thing where Kevin Nash saw himself in a casket, in the lead up to that. I wish Taker versus Diesel would have went on longer, Big Dog. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, Kevin Nash left the company thanks to Bret Hart. And that brings me to another Taker topic. Bret Hart and Diesel are having a cage match at In Your House. And Taker came in through the ring, underneath the ring, and he drags Kevin Nash into the pits of hell. But Bret Hart didn't want to take the jackknife and be laid out and look like he was almost beat. And then Bret Hart's complaining like, "Oh, what's in it for me? What's in it for me?" And Taker just runs up to him and says, "It's not always about you, motherfucker." Like, come on. You're already the champion. You have your feud built in with Michaels. This makes our match better. And because of that, Kevin Nash said, "You know what? I can't really stick around here. I'm going to take the offer from Eric Bischoff and go with Scott Hall to WCW." Because of the selfishness of Bret Hart. Taker was an unselfish guy. Taker was a guy that he wouldn't mind putting anybody over. Whatever was best for the company. He was a company guy. He was a locker room leader. He was in charge of wrestlers' court. Famous story to another backstage story. WrestleMania 14. They don't know if Shawn Michaels is going to put over Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're unsure of it. So Taker is sitting by gorilla position, taping up his fist, ready to handle business and beat Shawn Michaels' ass in case Shawn Michaels doesn't want to do the right thing. So Taker was always putting the WWE first, the company first, before anything. And he was the locker room leader. He was the franchise of the WWE. What Sting was to WCW, he was to the WWE. He was loyal, and he was always putting the company first. And that was what different with him than other wrestlers. People say, oh, well, Shawn Michaels was loyal. Yeah, Shawn Michaels was loyal, but Shawn Michaels got everything he wanted from Vince McMahon. He was allowed to not show up at bookings. He was allowed to dictate who was going to beat him and who he was going to beat, how he was going to beat him. A lot of times he dropped various championships without ever being beat. He would just lose his smile, and then he would drop championships. He did it like 3 or 4 times. And Michaels actually did walk out of the company in 97. Yeah, that should have been the match at WrestleMania 27, Big Dog. They were teasing it and there was talk about it, but it ended up being Triple H, and then they tried to pretend like we didn't have Triple H versus Undertaker 10 years before that at WrestleMania 17. Oh, this is the first time ever. This is the first time ever. We've had Triple H versus The Undertaker. No, it's not. We had Triple H versus The Undertaker in what many consider to be the greatest WrestleMania of all time in 2001. So, who are they trying to fool? There was rumors that Sting was going to leave TNA. That now Sting looks so lame in AEW. Yeah. And then when they bring Sting in, they bring him in to work with Triple H, and get beat by Triple H. Like Undertaker's working with Bray Wyatt that same event, and Sting is working with Triple H. How does that even make sense? I know they want to do the NWO versus DX thing, which they did, but first of all, continuity WWE. Babyface black and white Sting was never in the NWO. In fact, he was hated by the NWO. He was in the NWO with the Wolfpack, but he wasn't wearing the red and black paint when he wrestled Triple H and the NWO came out to help him. You know what I mean? So they should have just, and then Seth Rollins injured Sting, and Sting's career is over. So we never got Taker versus Sting. That was the only thing that was lame about take the latter half of Taker's career. As far as his best year in the WWE, I don't know if Big Dog will agree with this. I will say his best year is probably a toss-up between 1997 and 2007. 2007, he wins the World Heavyweight Championship against Batista. Biggest pay-per-view buy rate up until that point. And a lot of it was Trump and Lashley and Umaga and stuff, but a lot of it was Taker and Batista because they were both built up to be these huge monsters. And Taker won the Royal Rumble in 2007. And he was on top of SmackDown. Every week, the GM of SmackDown, Teddy Long, would come out and be like, "You're going to go one-on-one with The Undertaker." Tag team match with The Undertaker, player. In 2007. And just seeing him with the World Heavyweight Championship draped around his waist was tremendous. 1997, of course, he basically was carrying the company because Shawn Michaels was acting like a crybaby. Brett was there, but he was a heel. Stone Cold was just coming up. The Rock wasn't there, wasn't at that level yet. He was still Rocky Maivia. So it was Taker that put the company on his back, carried the company in 1997. So a toss-up between 1997 and 2007, but probably go with 2007. Even going into 2008, the feud with Edge Um, the Hell in a Cell match he had with Edge, the match at WrestleMania 24 that he had with Edge, where he introduced for the first time ever the Hell's Gate. One thing about um, one thing about Taker is real life. He's a huge MMA fan. He showed up one time at Brock Lesnar's fights. One of Brock Lesnar's fights, I think the one he had against Cain Velasquez in 2011. And him and Brock actually had a confrontation. Taker sitting in the audience. Uh, Brock rolls past him, and Taker's like, "Want to do it?" And then Brock and him are looking at each other. So Taker's a huge MMA fan, and towards the latter half of the 2000s, when MMA started really to get popular and people started really watching it more than pro wrestling, Taker would incorporate MMA moves like the Hell's Gate and like yeah, Big Dog's absolutely right. They used him like Andre. They had him like kind of an Andre the Giant type character. Andre the Giant's role, that was Andre's role before Taker was there, where he was just a monster. He was just an attraction. He didn't need the belt. Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. never put the belt on Andre, and they kind of treated Taker the same way. If they needed a transitional champion, like they were building somebody else up, yeah, then Taker would have the belt for a very long, a substantial amount of time, whatever. But he didn't need the title. He didn't need it. I mean, he was the Undertaker. When you went to a WWE show and them lights went out and you heard that dong, you knew it was Taker, man. And yeah, he took years to get to the ring, but you know, it was an incredible show. Creatures of the Night and all that. Who do you remember Big Dog when he had the mask? When he had the mask towards the latter half of 1995, you know, going into the early part of 96, he had a mask because he was beaten up by Mabel and Yokozuna. They both smashed his face, and he had to have it he had to have it surgically reconstructed, and he had this scary ass mask on. And that lasted about a couple months until Royal Rumble 96. He had the match with Bret Hart. Yeah. He had the match with Bret Hart, and he took it off. People didn't like it, but you know, he was always trying new things, always trying new moves, always trying to reinvent himself. With a new look, always, or a new look, or a new move, or something to keep him relevant because he had such a long career. He would always try something different. The Brothers of Destruction, him and Kane, awesome tag team. Probably the most powerful tag team in the history of the WWE. I would have loved to have seen them, a dream match, them and go against the Road Warriors. That would have been cool. They totally demolished uh, Canyon and DDP during the invasion angle, and that was something that Canyon was mad about and DDP was mad about. But hey, Taker was the kind of wrestler that he would wing it, he would call it in the ring. DDP was too, like, he would write everything down. He was too, you know, too scripted with stuff, and Taker really wasn't about that, and that's why that feud didn't really work during the invasion. And plus, this, um, the stalker thing was pretty shitty. I don't know why. You know, I don't know where they came up with that. But do I have a favorite Taker match? Yeah, WrestleMania 25, him versus Shawn Michaels. Um, that match, still to this day, I don't care what anybody says. That's probably the greatest wrestling match that I've ever seen. Such back and forth action. You thought so many times that Taker was gonna lose the streak. you know, so many near falls, and it was so good that they went on to do the main event, Triple H, Randy Orton, and nobody cared about Triple H and Randy Orton. People were already asleep. So that's my favorite match. He flies through the air, and it was a callback when he flew through the air and hit the cameraman. It was a callback to their from their match, September of '97, the Ground Zero match. Mabel. I was their first match, the first match they ever had in their careers in WWE. '97 in your house, Ground Zero. Taker first did the dive. So when he does the dive at WrestleMania 25, it's a callback, and longtime fans will remember Taker was always doing things like that were callbacks, small little details, a wink and a nod to the fans, like longtime fans get it. Even when he did the vignette, the one I was talking about, um, in the lead up to Royal Rumble '94, when he's building Taker's casket, in the back you can see the other casket that he made for Kamala, with Kamala's the yellow crescent that was on Kamala's belly, and the two stars that was on Kamala's chest. You would see a casket in that design in back of Taker. So it was those little details, those little callbacks that would make you say, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Because that was the first casket match so, between him and Kamala. So he referenced that in the skit against Yoko. And then how him and Yoko had tremendous chemistry. Undertaker and Yokozuna, other than Shawn Michaels, I would say Yokozuna is probably his greatest opponent. And it was because they were real friends in real life. They were part of the BSK faction. Uh, yeah, yeah, Big Dog. They were part of. What you talking about? The one in Survivor Series or the one at SummerSlam in Wembley? I like the one at SummerSlam when Taker came out in the hearse. Yeah, Yokozuna was a great opponent for him because they were friends in real life. So they had that chemistry that, the click kind of had. Same thing with the Godfather / Papa Shango / Kama. They always had good chemistry, except for SummerSlam '95. They did a storyline after WrestleMania 11 where Kama stole the urn and he melted the urn down to a chain. Yeah, that was Royal Rumble. That was the match with him and Yokozuna, Royal Rumble '94. Yeah, and Yoko was great with that because every time somebody would bring up a casket, Yoko would get scared. He would be scared shitless. It was sort of like Andre the Giant was with with snakes during the feud with Jake Roberts. Taker would get, Yoko would get so scared. That was the only thing that would really scare Yokozuna. Anybody would mention a casket, Yoko would get freaked out. You know what I mean? So they had great feuds. And then the one at Survivor Series 1994, the closeout with Chuck Norris in Jeff Jarrett's corner. Excuse me, Chuck Norris in Yokozuna's corner, and Jeff Jarrett comes out. He tries to do what they did in the Royal Rumble, and he tries to interfere. Chuck Norris kicks the shit out of Jeff Jarrett. So you had Chuck Norris in your corner. You know, you know, Chuck Norris appearing in Taker's corner. That was pretty cool. Taker and Chuck Norris were partners, two of the coolest guys ever in the history of the planet. Um, Another good match, Big Dog, I liked. WrestleMania 18, Ric Flair. Um, Ric Flair was coming back for his really first big match after being embarrassed in WCW and after not really getting the shots that he deserved as the legend he was in WCW. He was coming back in his first big match. Yeah, he wrestled um, Vince McMahon for the ownership of WWE like a couple months prior, but Vince McMahon is not really a wrestler, so he's coming really back in his first big match at a WrestleMania against the Undertaker at WrestleMania 18, and Arn Anderson interfered, and it was cool. Undertaker versus Ric Flair. So I really like that one. Um, Also, the first match with him and Kane, the conclusion to that storyline took like three tombstones to put Kane away. Um, the feud with him and Jake Roberts, him turning face, him doing the right thing, even though they were torturing Macho Man and Liz since their wedding. Taker was still had a conscience. He did the right thing, and he didn't let Jake hit Liz with a chair. Worst, him and Giant Gonzalez. Second worst, him and King Kong Bundy. I don't know what the match was supposed to be him versus Scott Hall. Scott Hall was going to turn heel again, and it was supposed to be him versus Scott Hall. But all of a sudden, they wanted to re-push King Kong Bundy after coming back to the company. They put King Kong Bundy in the match with some guy from the NFL as the referee, and it was just I don't know. It was just lame. Undertaker versus the Big Boss Man. Yeah, hanging the Big Boss Man from the top of the Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 15. Not a good look. Lynching somebody. I mean, thank God it wasn't Mark Henry, right? It would have been removed from the Peacock Network. Um, what I mean? But still, hanging somebody, nah. Ron Simmons, aka Farouk, and Taker had some good chemistry. They had a good match at King of the Ring, 1997. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, Big Dog. That was crazy. They should have never done that. Farouk versus Taker at King of the Ring 90s. King of the Ring 1997 was a pretty good match. I thought, the way they built it up with Farouk speaking about racial injustice, I thought, Farouk's going to beat Taker for the WWE Championship. No, that didn't happen. I think they were they were planning to have Ahmed Johnson at the next pay-per-view defeat Taker because the storyline was that Ahmed Johnson teamed with Taker against the Nation of Domination the night after King of the Ring 97. And that's when Ahmed Johnson Pearl River plunged Taker and he went up into the ramp and he did the Black Power sign and he turned heel on Taker. So I thought maybe they were going to have Ahmed Johnson uh, defeat Taker at Canadian Stampede, but that didn't happen. I guess because Ahmed Johnson got himself injured. But yeah, the Big Boss Man match, bad optics, never hang somebody at a wrestling pay per view. It just doesn't go over well, you know. But when they did the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing, crucifying Stone Cold Steve Austin on the Undertaker symbol. What do you think of that, big dog? Did you enjoy that, or was that a little bit too far? You know what I mean? Referencing, you know, religion, you know. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, it wasn't a it wasn't a cross. It was the Undertaker symbol. You know what I mean? So obviously, looking at it, oh, we know that what it references, Jesus Christ, Jesus image, being on the cross. But it was the Undertaker, and then kidnapping Stephanie. It was because of Undertaker that Stephanie became a character. The Ministry of Darkness kidnapped Stephanie McMahon, and she's in the back of the car, and Undertaker turns around, "Hello, Stephanie," and that's introduced us to Stephanie McMahon as a character. And then he has the dark wedding with Stephanie McMahon. Like he's the devil and he's marrying Stephanie McMahon. Like, yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. Thank you, big dog. I was just gonna bring that up. During the night that Owen Hart died at Over the Edge 1999, they had a match with The Undertaker, the blow off between The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And during the promo, in the lead up to that match, Undertaker says, "I collect," something to the effect of, "I collect souls. I'll take your soul." And it was really creepy and crypto-ish because, come on, a man just died in real life, and this is the kind of main event that you're gonna have, talking about he takes souls. I take the soul of all your heroes. You know what I mean? Like, it was just not. It wasn't a good look. You know, like that was one of the times when it was like, okay, yeah, we know the Undertaker's kayfabe. You know, not a. We know his character. Especially in 1999, he was devilish. He was a cult leader, Ministry of Darkness, Viscera, Naked Midian was under his spell. All these guys, but it's a little too far. You're taking a little too far with a lot of the devilish stuff. And ironically, Russo was the one writing this, and Russo later recanted and became a born again Christian in his books, saying that saying that some of that stuff was, a little bit too far. And it was with the Over the Edge. So, you know what I mean? But I did like Ministry Undertaker. I ain't gonna front. Ministry Undertaker, when he was looking like the devil and he was channeling Kevin Sullivan in '99 and really doing that devilish stuff, I kind of liked it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the crucifying thing. Ironic that when ECW did it, like a year or so, like 3 years before that with Raven and Sandman, people walked out, and that even stopped Kurt Angle from joining ECW at that time. And Raven had to go out there and apologize. So why Raven had to go out and apologize, and then when they did it on WWE with Stone Cold Steve Austin, he didn't. Maybe it's because what Raven did was a cross and what he did was the Undertaker symbol, but still, what it alluded to was still, kind of fucked up over the line. But Taker didn't really have a lot of other stuff that I really objected to. A lot of his stuff was cool, like Taker was the coolest. Undertaker was the coolest character, no matter the version of him. He was the coolest character that WWE had in WWE's history. As far as he buried Ultimate Warrior. He put Ultimate Warrior in a casket. Him and Jake the Snake Roberts set up the Ultimate Warrior. Remember, Jake the Snake Roberts said, "Never trust a snake." And then him and Taker set up the Ultimate Warrior and put him in that casket, and he was gone from WWE for the second time. He would have these body bag man. Right, right, big dog. When everybody left, when Hulk Hogan left, when Macho Man left, when they all left, Taker was still there. Taking it wasn't like with Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels. Am I shocked to see him in the Hall of Fame? Hell no. He's the greatest WWE. I knew he was going to get in eventually, but I didn't know when. Because even when they needed Taker, even when this is how loyal. This is to Big Dog's point. Not just in the 90s, not just in the 90s was he loyal to Vince, but even in 2020 when they didn't have Roman Reigns, they didn't have a lot of wrestlers because of COVID. Taker was loyal. Taker came out of retirement and he wrestled the Boneyard match against AJ Styles in WrestleMania 36. So not just in the 90s when everybody left and even Shawn Michaels was bitching, threatening he was going to go to WCW with his friends. Taker still was there. Even in 2020 when they needed a big name, they needed somebody, Taker agreed to, yeah, I'll come out of retirement, I'll do it. He was loyal to the end. He would do anything for Vince. Anything for Vince. Anything Vince wanted, he would do it. And his final match, the Boneyard match against AJ Styles, the first cinematic match, man, that shit will always be remembered too. I thought, oh man, why doesn't Undertaker just retire? Why doesn't he just go away? Okay, some of his mishaps, not only with the crucified thing, not only with the match 1999, Owen Hart, not only with WrestleMania 15, was some of his stuff that he should have maybe not done, that maybe he was a little bit too old for. 2018, guys, let's talk about it. The Saudi Arabia match against Goldberg. Yeah, Taker wasn't at his best when it came to that. Maybe he shouldn't have done that. Also in 2018, Undertaker in AEW. No, he was gonna do for a while. He was gonna do, I think, he was gonna do something with Conrad, the Starcast thing, a couple of years ago, but then Vince offered him a whole bunch of money and he came back. But some of the things he shouldn't have done when he came back in that second run was like that match against Goldberg, or that match him and Kane versus Shawn Michaels and Triple H at Saudi Arabia. Shawn Michaels come out of retirement 8 years later and wrestles Taker in the Saudi Arabia match. Nah, I could do without seeing that. Also, the Goldberg match, could do without seeing that. Obviously, thing is, when we saw in the Last Ride documentary that they did, was Undertaker is the Michael Jordan of professional wrestling. He has it in his blood. He can't get away from it. Not only is he loyal to Vince and he'll come back whenever, he has it in his blood. He's so banged up. A lot of times, Michelle McCool talks about it. He's so banged up. He still wants to be in there. He still wants to perform at a top level. I think he'll come back now and he'll put somebody over, you know, somebody new. You know, he'll make a legend out of somebody right now. You know, shit. If he wanted to, he'd come back and he'd wrestle probably Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. But you know, he just doesn't have it in him. He doesn't physically have it. He's much, much older. But if we're up to him, shit, he'd be wrestling forever. He's like another Ric Flair, you know? And then finally, his tribute at Survivor Series 2020. All the people that were associated with him, Kane, Mick Foley, the BSK, his crew in the BSK, that were his version of the clique. The Godwins, Savio Vega, Rikishi, the Godfather, they all come out and they pay tribute to him. And they should all be there. But the question is, who should induct Vince? Who should induct The Undertaker? I think Vince. I mean, yes, people will say maybe Kane should induct him, maybe Mick Foley should induct him, his greatest opponents. But it is Vince. You know what I mean? Vince was the guy, you know, who was so instrumental in his career, and he was so instrumental to the success of his career. And also, one thing about Taker, Taker became a legend. Taker became a legend in wrestling. He didn't have to go outside of wrestling to become a legend, like The Rock, or like even Hulk Hogan, or like Roddy Piper. He's a legend in wrestling. And in one promotion, constantly, he was always there. He was the constant. No matter what era, the golden era, new generation era, attitude era, ruthless aggression era, the modern era, no matter what era, if you were a WWE fan, you turned on WWE, you were guaranteed to see The Undertaker in some version. Whether it be American Badass, whether it be Ministry of Darkness, whether it be Gray Undertaker, whether it be All Black Undertaker, whether it be Dead Man 2.0 Undertaker, no matter what version of The Undertaker you turned on, and what era of the WWE you turned on WWE from 1990 on, you were guaranteed to see The Undertaker in some form or fashion. I hope that his tribute video includes some references to Paul Bearer, because to me, I think when Paul Bearer passed away, we lost some of The Undertaker's character, some of what made him special to us. When I was a kid and I first started watching, Paul Bearer's voice, the ooh yes, you know, ooh yes, I can't do it. You know, that Paul Bearer voice of doing his interviews, and Undertaker would just say, rest in peace, and roll his eyes back. That was classic. They were the most classic duo in professional wrestling. Undertaker and Paul Bearer went together like Liz and Macho Man. You know what I mean? You don't have Macho Man without Liz, and you didn't have Undertaker without Paul Bearer. So when Paul Bearer passed away in 2013, and Taker had the match with CM Punk, which was the best match on the card too. That's the thing, during the streak era, Taker would have the best match on the card. Not even the main events would be better than what he was having. He never really had a proper match with Cena at a WrestleMania. Yeah, they had that thing with Cena and Elias at WrestleMania 35, right? And then he comes back and he beats Cena. You know, that's what I wish they would have had, a proper match built up with him and Cena for the championship, like around 2011-ish or 2012-ish. when Cena was, on top of his game. That's one thing they missed out on. And him and Stone Cold Steve Austin also never had a WrestleMania match. They missed out on that. Him and Stone Cold had some great knockdown dragouts. SummerSlam 1998 comes to mind. Even A Cold Day in Hell when the Hart Foundation were at ringside and they interfered, that comes to mind. They've had some knockdown dragouts, but they never had a WrestleMania match. Randy Orton and Taker did have a WrestleMania match. Yeah, Brother Love, aka Bruce Pritchard, is good because he was the Undertaker's first manager. Hmm. He was the original manager of the Undertaker, and a lot of it was Bruce Pritchard's ideas. Bruce Pritchard's son's name is Kane. So for both Kane, what about Kane though? For both Kane and The Undertaker, Bruce Pritchard played a huge role in it because Bruce Pritchard loves horror movies. He loved Halloween. He loved that kind of stuff. So he introduced a lot of those elements into The Undertaker's character. But Kane would be a good one. A lot of people aren't really liking Kane right now, the real Kane, Glenn Jacobs, because because of his politics. But put politics aside, he should be there to also induct his kayfabe brother, The Undertaker. you know. So if not Brother Love or Vince, Kane. Kane is another choice. But this is the thing. Now, whoever they get, what about even Ted DiBiase? Ted DiBiase, I Jake the Snake Man, but he's in AEW, so they can't really get him. When they did the higher power storyline and Vince McMahon came out as the higher power, it was me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin. I really wanted it, and it would have made sense storyline wise for it to be Ted DiBiase or be Jake the Snake Roberts, because both Jake the Snake Roberts and Ted DiBiase were instrumental in Austin's career as well as the Undertaker's career. And both guys, being the higher power, both guys was well known they were Christians, right? So they had that religious tie-in a way to, storyline wise. So that would have been pretty cool if it was DiBiase or um, Jake. But they made it Vince McMahon. I feel like they dropped the ball with that. you know, that was one of the things I didn't. Uh, one of the storylines I didn't enjoy with the Undertaker was the higher power storyline. I liked him in the ministry after that, the stuff he did, but the fact it was Vince McMahon. But there's never going to be another character like The Undertaker because WWE doesn't do characters anymore. It's the brand of WWE that they want to get over, not the character. So there's never going to be another character like The Undertaker. And the fact that he was able to change with the times, I wish Taker would be young forever. I would have loved to have seen what Taker would have done nowadays and how he would have changed. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it made sense, you know, with Brother Love's character being a televangelist character, having the Brother Love show, and then introducing this evil character, The Undertaker. It makes sense, and it's something to give the fans Like, remember this? Taker was always doing that. Like I said, the little details, the details in Taker's storylines would make you be like, oh my God, yeah, I remember that. Even when he lost to Brock, when he lost to Brock at WrestleMania 30, after he was beaten by after he was beaten by Brock, fans thought he was really knocked out. He struggled to sit up. And we all know how fast Taker used to sit up in his youth. So that little detail of him struggling to sit up and him struggling to get back up added to the storyline and made it that much more powerful. So Brother Love inducting him, Bruce Pritchard inducting, yeah, that makes sense, man. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Um, if not him, Kane or Vince. Those are my top three: Kane, Vince, or Brother Love. But yeah, well deserved Undertaker. And I don't care, yes, he appeared in his documentary with a Blue Lives Matter shirt. So what? You know what I mean? That's his political beliefs. You can't take that away from him. We're all entitled to our political beliefs. You know. So some people wanted to isolate that pic during the Last Ride documentary and be like, oh well, he's wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt. So what? Like he's still the greatest WWE superstar, WWE character that ever existed. I don't care what he believes. I don't give a fuck what he believes. His political beliefs. So what? Like some of you snowflakes are all caught up in that BS. I knew Taker the man was conservative from the beginning. If you're shocked that he was conservative, then maybe you weren't paying attention for these last 30 years. Chavo Guerrero, um, nah, Chavo Guerrero, Midian kind of does make sense because he's in BSK. So Chavo Guerrero was never really linked to the Undertaker either on screen kayfabe wise or in storylines. So I don't know how Chavo makes any sense. If anything, Chavo was more linked to Kane because he beat him for the ECW championship. But there was a couple people trying to cancel Taker because of his appearing with a Blue Lives Matter shirt, you know, in his documentary about his career. So what? Again, like I said, he's still the greatest of all time. He's still the GOAT. People overreacted. Snowflakes overreacted when it came to shit like that. You don't agree with it. I don't agree with it either, but that's his belief. You know what I mean? That's his political opinion. Can't take that away from him. That's the freedom of this country. We're all allowed to have opinions. We're all allowed to have our own thoughts. It doesn't take away from who he was as a wrestler and who he was as a character and how he changed the course of wrestling and how he impacted professional wrestling and how he kept the WWE afloat during the hardest times that they've ever had in the history of the company. We all have our beliefs. But I don't know. Chavo doesn't really fit with him. Midian makes sense though. Wow, big dog, you're living in China? I didn't know that, man. Wow. You're living in China. Wow. Big dog. I didn't know you were, living in China. I assumed you were living in the United States. But man, big ups to you for living in the belly of the beast. I guess. I guess. You know what I mean? The control center for where COVID-19 began. Oh wow. Okay. What's it like? Hey, John Cena's favorite country, right? Yeah, we're all gonna miss him. I might not even tune in to the WWE all that much because seeing the Undertaker go is seeing a part of my childhood go. We grew up with this man. What other wrestler do you remember? Like I said, no matter the era, where you could turn it on, and the Undertaker was always there. There was no other wrestler like that. He was part of your childhood. You grew up with him. We grew up with him. Every single era, I compared him to in music, Michael Jackson, because he was just like Michael Jackson, in different eras, different looks, different iterations, different incarnations. Undertaker was the same way in wrestling. He was always there. There was no other superstar that was always there. John Cena wasn't there for. He wasn't. John Cena wasn't there during the classic era. Hogan had left. He wasn't there in the new generation era. He wasn't there in the Attitude era. He wasn't there in the SmackDown 6 era. But Taker was always there. Taker, no matter what era of the WWF, WWE, he was always there. He was constant. And he was always changing. Say you were a kid when the gray Taker came out. Then you were a preteen when the purple Taker came out. Then you were a little bit older when Black Taker came out. Then you were an adult when American Badass came out and the Deadman 2.0 came out. You could measure your childhood as a wrestling fan by what what was the Undertaker doing during that period in your life. What version of the Undertaker existed during that period of your life. When you became a wrestling fan. Some of us, like me, I started watching, like I always say, in 1990, the same year the Taker came out. A couple months before that, I started watching. Sheamus, okay. Yeah, he's coming up pretty soon. Are you Irish by any chance? LUK4SXFF? I mean, not that you have to be Irish to like Sheamus, but you know, of course, he has a big following in Ireland. But yeah, communist China. Wow, big dog. Dealing with the PRC, huh? Like I said, John Cena's favorite country. That's one thing too about Taker. He never changes political views to fit in. John Cena was supposed to be all American. He was supposed to be this Marine. He was supposed to be uber patriotic. And the Furious Nine comes out and he doesn't slip up. He said that um, Taiwan was its own country and Taiwan basically is its own country. Then he got under pressure from the Chinese Communist Party and he backed away and said, oh, there's only one China and Taiwan is not. Is is not its own country. Bullshit. John Cena made himself look weak. If you have an opinion, you have an opinion, you don't back away from it. We talked about this in the Whoopi Goldberg episode, the Whoopi Goldberg video, and Big Dog was there. If you say something and you have a political conviction, a political belief, even if people don't agree with it, you don't back away from it. You don't push out and change it. And that's what Cena did. And he lost a lot of my respect when he did that. You said that um, Taiwan is its own separate country. Taiwan considers itself its own separate country. They had a civil war in 1949, and just give Taiwan that respect. But no, you backed out to the PRC. You were afraid that the movie Furious 9 was going to be big in China, so you pushed out and changed your opinion. Fuck John Cena for that. Funny because John Cena became a heel in real life, bigger than he's ever been a heel in professional wrestling. Taker never changed his opinion. Yeah, him wearing the Blue Life Matters shirt might have been unpopular to some, but at least he stuck to it. Big Dog says, well, you see the control of people in China, and the people just accept it. Uh, well, yeah, Big Dog, because they've been communists for years. They've been communists since 1949. So I would imagine so. And even before that, they did have the mandate of heaven. They did have. They've never really had a history of democracy, of representative government, of freedom, as it were, like the United States. So I would imagine that, you know, but going back to this, but not going, I would imagine that they don't, they do better with being told what to do and autocratic forms of government. The Chinese people, it's just in their culture. But they did have the Tiananmen Square incident in the 80s, and they did have some revolts in Hong Kong, in 2019. So there is some political protest in China as well, depending on the part you are in. But going back to this, the wrestler that, besides the Undertaker, the wrestler that I will be sad to see going and happy to see going would be The Rock. Uh, Again, I don't like a lot of his personal opinions. I feel like him flirting with running for president. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, there's a video of it on my channel where it was supposed to be a video about Cody Rhodes leaving AEW to go back to the WWE, but I veered off into another direction like I always do. I freestyle. Sometimes I ramble. Sometimes I go off into another tangent, whatever. I just talk freely, even if doesn't really pertain to the topic. I just talk freely, and I go off and I say that Stone Cold Steve Austin is coming back to wrestle Kevin Owens for the first time ever since 2003. So basically, LUK, you uh, you have never seen Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle. You're from the 2000. You started watching in 2011. You've actually never seen Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle live. You don't when you weren't around, you know, during his reign in the Attitude Era in 96, 97, 98, 2000, 2001 when he won the Royal Rumble, 97, 98 when he won the Royal Rumble. So that's going to be a really good treat for you. That's going to be something great for you to see him live. Stone Cold Steve Austin, another huge star. So we're seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin come back, and we're seeing the Undertaker leave, just like we saw Bret Hart come back to the company in 2010, and Shawn Michaels. Yes, Big Dog is my homie, man. Big Dog is my true homie, because me and Big Dog once again were on the same page, bro. You know what I mean? I said the same thing, and I got shit for it in the group. I got shit for it in one of the Facebook groups. Somebody somebody came at me and was like, "What do you mean Kevin Owens is Kevin Owens is a huge star?" I said the same thing Big Dog saying. Why Kevin Owens? Yeah, they set it up where Kevin Owens did Texas, right? But why Kevin Owens? I mean, they were like, "Yo, but Jay, but Stunner versus Stunner." I'm like, Kevin Owens Stunner looks like shit. You know, like that Stunner that Kevin Owens does, that looks like that's garbage. That Stunner. You know, Stunner versus Stunner, really? Yes, Austin versus Goldberg is a dream match. The only dream match we have left. We never got it. Who remembers being a wrestling fan, 1997, especially 1998, buying the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines, and every cover, every month, you would see Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bill Goldberg. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bill Goldberg. And then Goldberg actually got on a Tonight Show live on TV and challenged Stone Cold Steve Austin to a match when both of them were in separate companies. And then when Goldberg finally comes to the WWE in 2003, the night after WrestleMania 19, they never do the match. They do a Stone Cold beer bash, and Stone Cold is the referee for Goldberg versus Lesnar, and he does stun Goldberg, but we never see the match. They continuously bring Goldberg back to face Lashley, to face fucking even Taker, um, Brock multiple times, uh, the Fiend. They bring him back to face all these people, but the match we really want to see is him versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, that's the only dream match there's left. That I mean, Taker versus Sting is never gonna happen now. So the only dream match that's left for us longtime fans that watch WCW and watch the WWE years ago, the Monday Night Wars. The only one that is left is Goldberg versus Stone Cold, but they want to do Goldberg. I mean, they want to do Stone Cold versus Kevin Owens. I don't get WWE. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes in the Universal Championship at SummerSlam 2022. Yeah, I could see that happening. I think they're gonna roll out the red carpet for Cody Rhodes because he's the first guy that jumped ship from AEW to the WWE. All these guys, Keith Lee, John Moxley, Miro, all these guys going to from WWE to AEW, Andrade, right? Everybody's going to AEW, and nobody's coming to the WWE. You know, from AEW, they're not getting anybody. I thought MJF was going to be the first AEW guy to jump ship to WWE because he's a guy that WWE be interested in. He's somebody that Vince McMahon would like. You know what I mean? He has charisma and stuff. He's short. You know, he's not a big guy, but he has charisma. He has the ability. He has the what it takes to be a WWE superstar. But Cody Rhodes coming back, that's crazy because he's the guy who started AEW. If he wouldn't have left, if they would have gave him and his brother the WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 32, maybe he would have never went to ROH, went to New Japan, and had that run and wanted to start AEW. You know what I mean? So the guy who started AEW is leaving AEW. That's wild, man. That is crazy. So I think Vince is gonna roll out the red carpet for Cody and probably give Cody a run with the Universal Championship, maybe even a run with the WWE Championship. Because remember, we still don't know who opponent Bobby Lashley's opponent is gonna be for this year's WrestleMania. The only three matches, yeah, um, the only matches we know for sure is Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair and Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. We don't know the other two, the other matches. We don't know who Becky's gonna face, and we don't know who Bobby's gonna face. So, gotta wait and see. But when they introduced the Hall of Fame inductees, I want Taker to have his own moment. I want Taker to have his own segments. I want him to be able to say goodbye to the fans live at WrestleMania. Not just at the Hall of Fame ceremony, but have him come out and say goodbye to the fans at WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Like how when Stone Cold came out, WrestleMania 25, the ATV bike, something like that. A special tribute, just his own little moment, to say goodbye to the fans that have followed his career. And of course, a moment the next day, the next night on Raw. Shawn Michaels had his, Ric Flair had his, leave the memories alone. Kevin Dunn's going to come out with a bit, a right. Thank you, Taker. A slamming Kevin Dunn. People don't like Kevin Dunn. They call him Bucky Beaver Teeth, whatever. Because they all want Jim Cornette sycophants. They're all big Jim Cornette marks. But one thing could be said about Kevin Dunn and the production team at WWE is they always put together these great packages of when the wrestlers from back in the day retire. They put together these great packages that are emotional, that tug at the heartstrings of the fan. And I'm sure they're going to do that for Undertaker the next night on Raw. So it's going to be great. And see all his opponents come out. Batista, will probably be there. Brock Lesnar will probably be there. Kane will be there. All the people that have been associated with Undertaker's career. Mick Foley, Roman Reigns, who Roman Reigns took over Taker's spot as the locker room leader. He's Taker's Peter Pan. Roman Reigns is Rufio. Rufio. You know what I mean? He now holds Taker's spot as the locker room leader, as the guy holding it together for the guys in the back is Roman Reigns. So it'll be kind of cool to see Roman, like, say Taker comes out, he's doing, the lights go on, he's doing this thing, and then Roman Reigns comes out, managed by Heyman. Heyman, of course, tied to Taker's history. And then Roman Reigns hugs Taker or shakes his hand. That'd be cool. A little breaking of kayfabe moment. Yeah, we know Roman Reigns is a heel. You know what I mean? But still, They broke kayfabe a lot of times to do it before to say goodbye to wrestlers. When the girls left NXT, they did it. Ric Flair retired, they did it. When Shawn Michaels retired, they did it. So they might as well do it now. Undertaker with Roman Reigns. That's what I would love to see. But yes, the greatest legend in the history of WWE is going in the Hall of Fame. Thank you, Taker, for the memories. Man, it's been a hell of a ride. Love you, Undertaker. And thank you guys, LUK, for contributing. Big Dog, as always. Thank you. Yeah, The Rock and John Cena. That would be good. Two big Hollywood celebrities taking a break from their big Hollywood careers to be there. They were a part of The Undertaker's legacy as well. Don't forget, in 2002, The Rock beat Taker for the Undisputed Championship. They had their feud that year. Also with John Cena, John Cena's first big feud again in 2002 on SmackDown that really put him over the top. People said it was Kurt Angle, but it was really his first big feud was with The Undertaker that really put him over the top. Yes, yes, of course, LUK. Shane McMahon's return, man. Shane McMahon's return. And Vince was sicking The Undertaker on his son Shane for daring to return and restart up the brand split. That was the best thing about WrestleMania 32. Really, you know what I mean? The best thing, it overshadowed, and they were in that same arena. It overshadowed Roman Reigns versus Triple H. It overshadowed, everything. The best thing one of the best things about that WrestleMania was the Shane McMahon Undertaker Hell in a Cell match. Of course. Of course, man. That was the thing with Taker. Just when you thought he was done, he would pull out something great out of his bag. Raw 25th anniversary. He comes back in the Manhattan Center. One of the best things about that show, he would always have something that he would pull out of his bag of tricks, his basket, if you will, and surprise us, the fans, the creatures of the night. WrestleMania 32, of course, man, of course. He was the king of the Hell in a Cell. He started the Hell in a Cell. He had great Hell in a Cell matches. WrestleMania 28, yeah, it was The Rock's return. Rock and John Cena, that's what people was there for. Yeah, yeah. He had the match against Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 31. But like Big Dog said, I would have liked to have seen Sting and him at WrestleMania 31. But the Bray Wyatt one was good, I guess. What really made WrestleMania 31 the best WrestleMania, it really didn't have anything to do with The Undertaker, was the fact that Seth Rollins cashed in his money in the bank and won the championship. And Roman Reigns didn't win the championship that night. Because like a yeah, yeah, that woo 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 woo. That that ladder match did shock everybody. Because we all were pulling for um uh Long Island native Zack Ryder to now Matt Cardona. Now he's the NWA world champion. as Matt Cardona. Do you think Matt Cardona will ever return to the WWE? Will ever go back to the WWE? But yeah, I remember watching that WrestleMania 32. I was coming home that night from doing something, but I was watching on my phone, and I didn't think Zack Ryder was gonna win the Intercontinental Championship that night, but he did. Yeah, NWO versus DX. Yeah, that was cool. We finally got to see it. That was a dream. That was a dream moment for everybody that grew up in the '90s. You had your NWOites and your DX fans and people fans. You know, as kids, they would always debate who was better, NWO or DX. That was cool to see. You know, Triple H coming dressed up as the Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger going into the Hall of Fame to hype up um, Terminator Genesis. It wasn't a good movie, you know what I mean? But it was cool to see Triple H dressed up as Terminator. Yeah, WrestleMania 31 was great. WrestleMania 33, man, we all had tears in our eyes when Roman Reigns beat Undertaker, and we thought it would be Undertaker's last match. It went on forever, WrestleMania 33, but it was worth seeing. Undertaker leaves the ring, his hat, his gloves, his jacket was sitting there. And we all were like, this is the end. But it wasn't the end. He came back later. And Bruce Pritchard said on his podcast, when Triple H is the best heel of all time. Yeah, in the modern era, I think Roman will probably, in that era, yeah. Roman will probably surpass him. Roman is a great heel. You know, and he's not done yet. You know, the amount of heat that Roman generates, the amount of heat he gets from the fans with the shit he does, man, he gets booed like crazy. But Triple H, yeah, he's up there as one of the best heels. He took out the whole WCW all by himself when he beat Booker T at WrestleMania 19, when he beat Sting at WrestleMania 31. He pissed a lot. He pissed a lot. Vince McMahon, the greatest heel? Yeah, I gotta, uh, I gotta say Hulk Hogan ranks up there. Hulk Hogan's heel run. I mean that reaction, Hulk. Randy Orton. Oh man, LUK. Yes, Randy Orton is. They're bringing up Randy Orton, and he's one that needs to go in the Hall of Fame in the next couple of years because he's the greatest. He's one of the greatest, man. You know, the Viper. He RKO, and RKO was one of the best finishing moves ever. And when he did it to Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31 in the middle of, in midair, man, we all popped in that Seth Rollins Randy Orton match. That I love to see Randy go in the Hall of Fame, man. The only gripe I have with Randy is that he's never had his. I mean, yes, he had that WrestleMania moment where he RKO'd the one I'm talking about, WrestleMania 31, where he RKO'd Seth Rollins, but he never had a WrestleMania moment where he walked out of WrestleMania as the champion. Yeah, he did. Okay, WrestleMania 24, but that wasn't he. He wasn't, going on last. He didn't walk out of WrestleMania in the last match successfully. even when we thought he was gonna do it, when he won the Royal Rumble in 2009 and he was on his roll, we're like, okay, yeah, this is Randy Orton's year. He has legacy and stuff. He's gonna walk out of WrestleMania as the champion. No, Triple H walks out as the champion. So Triple H, Triple H is a heel in real life too, in a sense, LUK, because when we want to see, we want to see a certain ending to a wrestling match, want to see a certain guy go over. Triple H politically maneuvers so that he could go over. It's happened tons of times. Sting, WrestleMania 31, Booker T, WrestleMania 19, and Randy Orton, WrestleMania 25. So Triple H is a heel in a sense, even in real life. you know, you, you know. But Randy, yeah, I would have loved to have seen. I mean, Randy Orton's not old yet. The Legend Killer is not quite ready to retire just yet. So he can one day have that moment where he build up, he wins the Royal Rumble, and he walks out of WrestleMania as the champion. He's not done yet, really. So he can, and it was Taker who gave him that rub. WrestleMania 21, the match with him and Taker, a great match. Go back and look at it if you haven't seen it. Taker even beat up his dad, Bob Orton Jr. Yeah, I would like to see Burn the Light come back. Yeah, they got to do something with Edge. Him teaming with Beth Phoenix, his wife Beth. Did anyone think that the new tougher Beth Phoenix was, you know, channeling Luna in certain ways was kind of hot, man? She kind of looked hot, you know. What about they can't they can't do this? What about if they have Edge? I mean, not Edge. Edge teaming with uh, Beth Phoenix in a mixed tag against Val Venus, Sean Morley, Val Venus, and Trish Stratus. Because in real life, Edge and Val Venus do have a history because Edge was married at one point to Val Venus' sister. Mhm. So, I don't know what they're doing with it. I'm so sick. Though one thing with Randy though, I'm so sick of seeing Randy Orton teaming with the RK Bro. Shit, they need to end that team. I mean, I get it. They're two guys that don't get along. They're two guys. Yeah, Matt Riddle. Thank you, big dog. I forgot his name. He's so forgettable. Two guys that don't get along. Two guys that are so different. Yeah, exactly. It'd be the equivalent of back in the day, Stone Cold Steve Austin teaming with the Hurricane. A comic book. Mhm. I can't imagine why he would. I mean, here's a guy who was on UFC, tough enough, lost. He didn't get along with Dana White. He figured, okay, I'll go into professional wrestling and I'll coast easy on wrestling because it's a work and I'll be able to make easy money that way and I'll just use wrestling as a launching pad for whatever. You know, and he has no respect for the wrestling business. And Randy Orton is a third generation superstar. You know what I mean? His father was in the business. His grandfather was in the business. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case, man. LUK. What's happening is a lot of our guys, a lot of the guys we grew up with, you know, from the 90s or the 2000s or the 2010s, now they're getting old, now they're retiring, now they're going away to do other things. And they're not bringing in new guys that are any good. They're bringing in the Matt Riddles of the world, these jobber guys. These guys wouldn't even back in the day, man, they wouldn't even be considered as main eventers. They wouldn't even have WrestleMania matches. They'd be on the pre-show back in the day. You know what I mean? And now they're front and center. And all the NXT people from the old NXT, and even NXT, like NXT was something, that a lot of the smart fans loved, a lot of the hardcore fans, especially when they put it on the network. you know, yes, Big Dog is absolutely right. Was something that we all loved, right? And we all cherish NXT, and we saw the guys from NXT rise up, and we saw them misuse some, like the Ascension or like Neville, right? But Big Dog is absolutely right. This year at the Royal Rumble 2022, what was the highlight we were talking about in the men's Royal Rumble? Bad Bunny's appearance? You know what I mean? I thought it was cool, the Bad Bunny thing last year at WrestleMania, and that was pretty cool, a one-time thing. But now you got this guy, Bad Bunny, being the star of the fucking Royal Rumble. A singer, not even an athlete. Not even, you thought it was bad when they put Lawrence Taylor over in 95 or, something like that. But this is worse. This is a non-athlete. This is an entertainer, a singer. He sang a Booker T song. He's popular in the Spanish countries. I get it. I'm Hispanic myself. You know what I mean? I knew about Bad Bunny's music. I knew the song he did with Cardi or whatever. I like it like that. Okay? He's a very talented singer in that genre of music, but he's not an athlete. He doesn't deserve to be put over the wrestlers. It kills me when Vince McMahon does shit like this. The talent that been putting the work in, putting the time in, putting matches in, going on the road, busting their asses, have to be put over by this singer. You know what I mean? And Vince always does that. He wants the WWE to be so mainstream that he's willing to sacrifice the reputation of the wrestlers that will be there after the Bad Bunnies of the world and all that stuff. After those guys are gone and they've gone back to doing their regular celebrity jobs, the guys that are the workhorses will still be there. They'll still be there busting their asses. But if somebody has, a reputation from a different arena, like MMA reputation or a singing reputation or a football reputation or whatever reputation from a different area, and they're an outside celebrity, Vince will roll out the red carpet for them and have them beat every single wrestler and make the wrestlers, the normal wrestlers that are there 365 days a year, make them look like fools. And that's what he's doing with the Bad Bunny thing. Okay, it's one thing in a tag match. He's with Damian Priest, he's with Morrison and Miz. But now you have him in the Royal Rumble. Now you have him throwing guys over. You have him facing Brock Lesnar. Like, making him look like a real contender. Come on, Vince. LUK is absolutely right. We wanted to see. Remember in 2018, they did the revamp over, right? Where they promised that they would give us the authority come out, and they broke kayfabe, and they promised that they would give us what we wanted. They would do things our way. They would listen to us, the fans. So much for listening to us, the fans. They haven't given us what we wanted at all. We want somebody to want somebody to be pushed, somebody to be promoted, somebody to put the championship on them, and WWE completely ignores and they go with who they want. With the way they're pushing Bad Bunny, it won't be long before Bad Bunny comes back, has the money in the bank, cashes his money in the bank, and pins Brock Lesnar for the championship. You know, you know what I mean? No, no, Vince. Vince has lost it. Vince has literally lost it. He's lost his touch. And people say, "Oh, well, you're wrong, Jay. Look at how much money the WWE made. Their most successful year ever in their history in 2021, right? And they're set to make just as much money this year. Yeah, but they're losing fans hand over fist. Longtime fans like me, like Big Dog, like LUK, we're no longer caring. We're no longer we're wishing that he would sell the company to Disney. When Disney Plus and the Royal Rumble did that collaboration, I know a lot of fans were like, "Oh man, this is gonna be it." You know, WWE is going to be purchased by Disney. We shouldn't be wanting the McMahons out of the wrestling business. You know what I mean? Like, this is how bad it's gotten. Sure, they're making a lot of money with TV deals or whatever, but it's never the same. It's never like it was during the Undertaker's era when you had to tune in, when it was must see TV, when SmackDown was setting the world on fire. Even the SmackDown Live era when they first moved to USA in 2016. It's never like that. You know what I mean? It's never must see TV for the people anymore because the characters are gone, the magic is gone, the feeling is gone. But I always tune in around WrestleMania time just to see what the company's doing. And I love you guys, Big Dog, all of you guys. And thank you, Undertaker, for all the memories. Like I said, the greatest character in the history of the WWE. Peace.